Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Roney, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the autoimmune diseases and treatment portion of the website. If you haven't had the opportunity to click on the welcome page and read and review that video, I'd advise you to do that. It's going to give you a good big picture idea of what we're trying to accomplish here and why we get such good results also. So, autoimmune conditions are probably the most mistreated conditions on the planet, at least one of them. I see the thyroid as one of the most, fibromyalgia as one of the most, and certainly autoimmune conditions. On the rise in America to an alarming rate, for sure, and this is the reason why you feel, a lot of you with these conditions feel really bad every day. I tell my patients it's very similar that you have almost like you have the flu every day, meaning your body is constantly attacking a foreign invader, or it's dysregulated. There's not a foreign invader there, it's just dysregulated, and that dysregulation is what I'm going to show you visually today. Now I've written it out on the website on this page, and I know it gets a little confusing, and I'm more of a visual person, so I want to break it down for you step by step so you can really get an idea, because it's so important that if you understand what I'm telling you here with these autoimmune conditions, you have the key to getting your health restored. Again, if you have an autoimmune condition, the problem is the immune system. Taking medications for pain and inflammation, I get it, I understand that. However, it's not going to correct the immune system problem. What we're trying to do is go after the immune system and regulate that. If we can regulate the immune system, your symptoms will dramatically decrease or even go away. And we do it every single day. So I really, really want you to listen and try to understand this. If you need to replay this video over and over again, please do. Again, understanding this is the key to getting better. Okay? All right. Let's start now. What I'm about to show you is pretty remedial. And what I mean by that is there's no big production value here. I'm pretty simple in the point that I want to get one main idea over to you, okay? And I want to help you get better. That's what I'm most interested in. So bear with me, okay? All right, let's look at this diagram that I put up here. So when your immune system is attacking, say you have a foreign invader, which is called an antigen. When that is present in the body, okay, that could be a cold or a flu or a bacteria or parasite or whatever it might be. You have this foreign invader. It is then engulfed by something called a macrophage, like a Pac-Man. Once it engulfs the foreign invader here, okay, it becomes an antigen presenting cell, an APC. That antigen presenting cell then stimulates the attackers. The T helper cells, okay, which are made up of natural killer cells, you see the red lines here, and cytotoxic T cells here, and natural killer cells here. All right, these are the attackers. So when you have a foreign invader, the macrophage engulfs it, I should say, becomes an antigen presenting cell. That antigen presenting cell will stimulate T helper cells, and T helper cells are made up of natural killer cells, okay, here, and cytotoxic T cells here. They are the attackers. Those are what attack a foreign invader, okay? Hopefully you see that. I've written that out so you can review that. Okay, next step in the equation here, if you will, or pieces of the puzzle. That antigen presenting cell, okay, up here, this antigen presenting cell will also stimulate the production of something called T regulatory cells, okay? So it stimulates T helper cells and T regulatory cells. T regulatory cells coordinate the attack, as you see over here. These coordinate the attack. They are responsible for production of T helper cells, okay, and T suppressor cells. T helper cells attack, T suppressor cells stop the attack once the foreign invader is destroyed, okay? So keep that pretty simple. The problem with the immune system with autoimmune patients, a lot of it happens right here. These T regulatory cells become drunk, hypothetically. They're just not working really well. And what happens is those T regulatory cells may not be stimulating the production of T helper cells, and T suppressor cells properly. As an example, say I'm not stimulating enough, the T regulatory cells are not stimulating the production of T suppressor cells. So when you have a foreign invader attacking, these T helper cells in the form of cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells never get suppressed, so the attack goes on and on and on. That's an autoimmune condition. The attack really never stops, okay? So we need, as part of our treatment, is to make sure we regulate T regulatory cells. And there are very good products designed and supplements designed to do that, okay? So once again, just a quick review, we have your macrophage that envelops an invader, an antigen, becomes a presenting cell that stimulates the production of T helper cells. T helper cells become T helper cells in the form of natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells attack the foreign invader, right? Then the antigen presenting cell also stimulates T regulatory cells, okay, which are supposed to regulate T helper and T suppressor cells. In an immune attack, an autoimmune condition, something's going awry here, okay? The T regulatory cells aren't doing this properly, and we'll explain that as we go. All right, finally, what we typically see here, we move this out of the way so you can see, you have the antigen presenting cells that stimulate the T regulatory cells. But finally, this is what happens. Once the attack has been completed and stopped by the T suppressor cells, so say the immune system is working well, T suppressors are okay, they stop the attack once it's done, the B cells are sent to the scene. So this is a whole different pathway. It's called the Th2 pathway. B cells arrive on the scene days later after the attack is completed, and they tag the foreign invader. When they tag the foreign invader, it allows the natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells to recognize it later. So if that same foreign invader comes into your body again, it's been tagged, and the T cells, okay, cytotoxic Ts and natural killer cells attack it very quickly, you don't get sick. Okay? So B cells are the taggers. So we can have a problem with B cells tagging too many tissues. Okay? So there's a dysregulation in B cell activity too, meaning they could be tagging basically healthy tissue and cells and foreign tissues also. So if you have too many B cells working, that's a problem. So that's part of the dysregulation, or could be as well. Okay? So let's look at, as we looked at that immune system, and that's basically immunology 101. Okay? Macrophage engulfs the invader, foreign invader. Antigen becomes an antigen presenting cell. That antigen presenting cell makes T cells, which are made up of what? Natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells. They're the attackers. Also, that antigen presenting cell makes T regulatory cells, which are supposed to regulate the T helpers that we just talked about, the attackers, and B suppressors. As long as that's working well, the attack gets done, the T suppressors stop the attack, and it's done. Then the B cells come in and tag it for foreign or for future reference in case the same thing attacks again. That's immunology 101. Let's look at some scenarios where that can break down, okay? Number one, you may not be making enough T suppressors like we talked about. If that happens, the T regulatory cells are not making enough T suppressors, then you're not suppressing the attack. In an autoimmune condition, the attack could be going on and on because you're not making enough T suppressors. So again, as I'm going through these scenarios, they may not all be happening to you, but these are examples of how the immune system becomes dysregulated, creating an autoimmune attack, okay? So, you could also be making too much something called interleukin-2. Interleukin-2 is a chemical messenger that makes cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells. So if you're making too much interleukin-2, you're making too many attackers. That's not good in an autoimmune condition. Everything has to be regulated properly. All right, you could also be making too much interleukin-4. Interleukin-4 makes B cells. So if you have too much interleukin-4, then you have too many B cells that are tagging things, meaning it's tagging good tissue, bad tissue, and innocent bystanders like the thyroid or the joints can be tagged, and then the cytotoxic Ts and the natural killer cells are just constantly attacking because it's attacking what's been tagged. Okay? You could also have insulin and blood sugar issues, which will increase your B cell production. Again, they're the taggers. So if you're increasing the B cell production, it's tagging healthy tissue as well. Okay, and that's where the other attackers will attack anything tagged. Okay, so you also could have parasitic infections and multiple food sensitivities that are going on in the body that will also increase interleukin-4 and B cells, the taggers. Okay, again, you're tagging everything, your body's going to attack what's tagged. All right. The other thing that we see consistently is chronic viral infections. Matter of fact, I see this very, very commonly with my fibromyalgia patients. They have chronic viral infections, whether it's Epstein-Barr, Lyme's disease, hepatitis C, what have you. Chronic viral infections are going to increase the interleukin-2s, which means you will increase your natural killer cell, your T cells, your natural killer cells, and your cytotoxic T cells. So if those interleukin-2s are constantly on the rise, then you're constantly attacking. And that, in general, constitutes some scenarios of how your immune system can become dysregulated. The key here, okay, is to do the right testing. So we test things like interleukin-2, interleukin-4, interleukin-10, TNF-alpha, natural killer cells, cytotoxic T cells, T and B, T helper and T suppressor, as well as the B cells and the T cells. We want to see if things are high, if things are low, where things are. And if we can get the answers via those tests, then we can certainly address these issues via proper botanicals and supplementation or supplements that can regulate the immune system again, but we have to find out where it's broken down. So testing those things that I just mentioned is a huge key for us getting you better. The key is, now remember this, the key is that once that autoimmune condition gene is turned on, it's always going to be there. The key is to regulate that immune system again, so when we retest your antibodies, whether it's TPO or TBG antibodies to the thyroid, or your RA antibodies, as well as antibodies for lupus or scleroderma, whatever it might be, that when we retest, they're back into the normal range, which means it's not cured, it's just that you're not getting that constant attack. So we have to either regulate the interleukin-2s, the interleukin-4s, interleukin-10s, the TNF-alphas, the natural killer cells, the cytotoxic T cells, the B cells, what have you. We need to regulate somewhere in those pathways, and we can do that very well as the T regulatory cells that are responsible for T helper and T suppressors. Those T regulatory cells become off quite often. So again, the key is test, treat, retest, and then make sure that the antibodies are no longer positive or no longer above the normal functional ranges. Once we do that, your body is going to feel so much better because you're not having the constant flu anymore. Okay, and I use this flu. You don't necessarily have the flu, but you have an attack, immune system attack that's causing constant inflammation, swelling, joint stiffness, you name it. You have experienced it if you've had an autoimmune condition. So again, hopefully that makes sense. I know it was somewhat from a production value standpoint, and I don't even care about that. I care that you understand it so you know you can get better. Okay? Any questions, feel free to call the office. We'll be making a DVD that you can order as well here in the next, it's mid-August right now. We'll be getting that together very soon. And either way, you can call us with any questions or concerns, okay? I thank you for your time. I hope this makes sense because it is the key for you to get better, okay? Have a great day and wish you the best.